Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. What's going on, everybody? Matthew Bivens here, and thank you again for joining me for another episode of the Having It All podcast. So this episode is it's a rebroadcast. We're dipping into the archives, and I'm bringing you a conversation that I had with a pretty incredible woman named Monique Ruffin. Monique is a mother, she's a writer, a coach, an author, a radio host, and she has a bunch of other things. But really, what inspires me about Monique is just how she handles and has handled circumstances in her life. She grew up in a rough neighborhood. She's had a number of challenges that she's faced throughout her life, and she's just stared at all of them, welcomed the challenge, and has truly transcended and grown and evolved and transformed in the face of all of it. You know, in the episode, you're going to hear her heart, her authenticity, her courage, her vulnerability. I mean, Monique keeps it real. So I'm bringing this to you all because if you are a new listener to the show, then you probably haven't heard this awesome conversation that I'm having with Monique. So I definitely want you to hear it. So that's what you are about to listen to. But first, I want to let you know real quick that I am actually the host of another podcast. It's called Doing It at Home. It's all about home birth and natural pregnancy, natural parenting. And I host the show with my amazing wife, Sarah. And so a little bit about us, a little bit about our journey into parenthood. We decided to go the home birth route. And so baby Maya was born just over 6 months ago at our home. She was actually born right in our master bedroom. And before she was born, my wife and I launched the Doing It at Home podcast for other home birth parents and families like us. Because when we were doing our research and just looking into different birth options, we had a hard time finding just raw, empowering, honest, great resources around home birth. And so we decided to make our own. So the podcast is called Doing It at Home. Again, it's all about home birth, all about natural pregnancy, natural parenting, and natural birth. And we do two things on the show. We talk to home birth moms and families, and they share their stories. So half the episodes are all about hearing birth stories. And the other half is Sarah and I talking about all different types of pregnancy, birth, and parenting topics. So it really runs the gamut. You know me, so it gets raw, it gets real. For instance, our most popular episodes are our sex episodes, sex while pregnant and postpartum sex. So check it out. The show is Doing It at Home. You can find it on iTunes, you can find it on Stitcher, and our website for the show is diahpodcast.com. So now let's jump right into my conversation with Monique Ruffin. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Monique, and the work that you do currently?
Yes. So I am, my name is Monique Ruffin, and I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I still live in Los Angeles. I have lived in various other cities and states for parts of my life, but Los Angeles is where I call home, and I love Los Angeles. I really do. There's something about it that just feels so comfortable for me, and I feel really safe and secure here. I am divorced, and I have a 9-year-old son. I am a writer. I host a radio show. I do life coaching, and more than anything, I am a consistent, dedicated seeker of openings is what I really like to say. Like, I love openings. And so I am constantly looking for the place that is open for me to figure out if my energy is either big enough or small enough, or my body can squeeze into that opening and onto the other side to see what else is possible. I love possibilities, and I love newness, and I am eternally curious. And so that is how my life is for me. if someone suggests something to me, and if I have any interest in it, and once I've discovered that, oh, I have interest, this is a curious call for me, and it's not going to kill me because I have a child, then let's see. Let's see what it is.
Oh, I love that.
So that's sort of how I live my life. And it has paid off for me because it has allowed me to find my way out of childhood circumstances that were very restrictive and depleting into adult experiences that are expansive and filled with possibilities. So that's a little bit about who I am.
Wow, I love that. That's much more deep and rich than any intro I could have given you. So thank you for for opening that book on yourself. So talk to me a little bit. What was it like growing up for you?
So I grew up, like I said, in Los Angeles, and I grew up in Watts, which is where Sanford and Sons was filmed. So most people kind of relate to Watts in that way, with Red Fox running this junkyard. His home was like a junkyard, and he's this old man, and they're poor and Black and just living in this very sort of stressful time. So, I wasn't raised by an old Black man, but I was raised by an old Black woman. And she was Southern, and she was old and tired. I mean, old in her spirit, not old necessarily in her body, but she believed she was old, so she behaved old. So I went to live with my grandmother when I was 3 years old, and she had a daughter who was 8 years older than me. So at the time she was 11 or 12, and she became my fast, playmate and caregiver. She taught me to read, and she taught me to count, and she just took me under her wing. And at some point, she kind of became like my mother, which was unfortunate in later years because she gave up a lot of her own childhood to care for me. But for many years, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so I grew up, in an environment initially that was just me and my auntie and my grandmother. And then it changed because crack started to come into the community. And so as I aged, like my peers and my uncles and people that I was close to started abusing a lot of drugs because there wasn't a lot of unemployment was really low. I mean, unemployment was really high. So there was a lot of abuse and drug abuse and alcoholism and just a lot of deprivation. So that was the thing that really framed my young, 10, maybe 7 to 14 or 15, just this environment that was filled with a lot of addiction. And that influenced me a lot. It created a lot of pain because my parents were also addicts, drug addicts and abusers, and physically and mentally deprived in their own ways. And so it framed, so I was a Christian. I was very much like for Jesus because that was the only place that I had been taught that I could sort of find some path to freedom, find a connection to God, a connection to myself. So I took that very seriously and really spent a lot of time in church and prayed and spent a lot of time reading the Bible and did a lot of that until I went to college. So those are my early years.
Wow. Now you talked about that perspective and just sort of the frame of mind that you adopted just living in the environment that you lived in. I imagine, I don't know you personally. You and I have had a couple of phone conversations, and that's really the extent of our relationship. But I imagine on some levels you have evolved or ascended or escaped those perceptions, the frame of mind that you had when you were a child. How do you do that? How did you do that? How are you able to heal and grow beyond what was given to you as a kid to where you are now as an adult?
I think that there were a couple of things. One of the things that has really been a gift for me is that I have always been able to feel. So I was always very aware of what made me feel bad. Probably more than anything else, I could feel like, oh, this person, something about them makes me feel bad. Or I feel neutral in this experience. I don't feel bad, or I feel scared here. So I always had access to my senses, basically. And pain was a huge influencer for me. So, being in the company of my mother when she was drunk was painful and scary. And I was aware of that. And that influenced me. It influenced me to try to get away from the pain, try to escape the thing that was making me, that I was afraid of. And then the other part of it, so, having access to my senses. And then the other part was that I'm eternally curious. So, running from the pain or running from the fear, and then having this sense of curiosity that just really will not leave me alone. So I would try almost anything to escape the pain, except for what I saw the people in pain doing. So I would never try drugs. I would never try drugs. I would never, really abuse alcohol, or I never did things that I was clear caused more pain. So for a little while, I may have, been irresponsible in relationships with boys because I didn't make the connection. And it's really difficult when you're a young girl to manage your hormones and the desire that, science implants inside of you to procreate. So it took me a while to get that, oh, this is going to cause pain. So once I got that, which was when I was about 20, I was like, oh, so I don't want to use drugs. I don't want to abuse alcohol. And I want to be very mindful about my relationships with men and boys. So those three things, or those couple of things, just, being very, very sensitive and aware of how I felt and being very, very curious helped me change what I saw growing up and the influences that had impacted me growing up.
That's powerful. I was reading through your blog before we jumped on this call, and there's something that I read in one of your blog articles that really connects with what you just said about escaping those influences. And it was in a blog article, a recent one. There was about the Gap ad. The Gap ad with the that caused a lot of controversy. Some people thought it was racist, and
yes,
I'll put a link to that article of yours in the show notes for this episode. So if anyone wants to read Monique's article, it's a great article. But what stuck out to me and why I'm bringing it up now is a line that I pulled from your article that I actually want to read to you, and the line is, and now again for those listening out there, go and read the article to get the full context of this. But you wrote, "We see with eyes of racism, otherness, and privilege due to our inability to heal what has created these broken perceptions." And, you were talking about that in the article, that when folks saw the article, they immediately thought of racism, but that's because the eyes they were viewing the article with it was through a lens of racism and otherness and privilege. Yeah. And so I'm bringing this up because it goes back into what you experienced as a young child and the lenses that you picked up from those experiences, and how, you could have gone through the rest of your life wearing those lenses, but you were intentional about your healing, maybe more so later in life than you were, earlier. But you just mentioned how you healed through being in touch with your emotions and being curious. And I wanted to make that connection because I think that is incredibly important and powerful, that, we see life as we are, not truly as it is.
Correct.
And I just love that you wrote about that in the article, and then you were sharing that in reference to your story now.
Thank you for making that connection.
Yeah, connections are everywhere, right?
Yes, they are. And it's I mean, self-knowledge is everything. Like, everybody is wired differently, and not everybody can feel things the way I feel things, but then I don't have necessarily maybe the intellect that someone else has. But however we filter the world, it's to our advantage to learn where we filter our information through. I filter my information through my senses. I am a sensory person. I listen better than I read. I feel better than anything else. So if we understand ourselves, then we can understand what influences us, and then we can learn to sort of navigate the world like like an obstacle park, right? Where you go, okay, that's going to create an obstacle for me. What will be less of an obstacle? Like, which direction should I go in? So it really is understanding ourselves. And when we understand ourselves, we can navigate any situation.
So how do you do that? For the person out there who just heard you say that and talk about understanding yourself, and they want to learn how to understand themselves, how would you recommend someone go about doing that?
Well, I think it's, for me, like I said, for me, curiosity is my greatest gift. Mm-hmm. So when I have made a mistake enough times, I will say, okay, what is it? What am I doing? So the first thing is to keep our eyes on ourselves and not on other people. Really, that's huge. Where the power is. So if I'm making a mistake over and over and over again, where most people will go, that person won't get out of my way, or that person won't do what I want them to do, or that person did that to me, and that is why I did that, because that person or that thing. What I finally learned to do is go, I keep doing this over and over again. What is it that I'm doing? What is it that I'm thinking that has me making that same choice over and over and over again? So I start to look at my own patterns, right? I start to look at, and then when I can see my pattern, it's like, okay, what need am I trying to meet? What need is within me that I am really trying to work out inside of myself? And sometimes, I'm in the process of it all the time. It is not something that I get to and win, and it offers nuggets. Like recently I've been going through something with motherhood. Motherhood is the biggest struggle for me. It just is. I have to be really honest.
Yeah, be honest.
And
that's awesome.
Motherhood clobbers me. I will say that. And it clobbers me, and it has clobbered every woman in my family. So it is a generational thing in my family, that the women in my family who are mothers, and the women in my family who are not mothers, but who are aunties, because we all end up mothering together, have the greatest struggles with maintaining our sense of self, maintaining a sense of power, maintaining our source of creativity inside of this experience of motherhood. So since I have become a mother, I have been paying attention to what that is. I have done the research to find out what it was for my mother, what it was for her mother. And I have finally discovered recently, so I've been doing this since my child was born, but I've really been doing it since I was old enough to discover that my mother struggled so much with me. So I've probably been doing it since I was about 19. And I recently discovered that I have not been able to be empathetic with my own mother. Like, I couldn't really understand that my mother was more than my mother. She was just a human being.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Changed everything. But it took me like 20 years to get to that. My mother was just a woman. She was 17 years old when she had me. In 1958, abortions were illegal. She had a 15-year-old sister who was also pregnant. Her father was furious. 2 angry men expecting children. My mother was terrified. She wasn't my mother. She was just a terrified girl. changed everything for me. But it took me years to get to that, because for years I was angry. I felt, abandoned. I felt like, how dare she? How come she didn't? Finally, I just started looking at me. Oh, I'm struggling with my own child. What is this about?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
curiosity.
And being courageous. I think it takes courage to be curious. It takes courage to look within, because, there's, especially if we know, and even on a subconscious level, that there are things inside that we've been pushing down. That curiosity, there's a great chance that it's going to bring some of that up.
Yes, it does. It brings it all up.
Yeah, it brings it up.
Yes.
I love the fact that you shared your realization that your mother is a person, and that you were able to look at her separate from her being a mother, and saying, wow, she's a person, and people, we do the best we can with the tools that we have at the time. And I know that for me in my life, with my relationship with my parents, that's something that I am reminding myself of as I am stepping into my role as a father, and as my wife is stepping into her role as a mother. We're in our 24th week of pregnancy right now. And so being able to view my parents as people, as opposed to mom and dad who should or shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z, has been a powerful realization for me. So I'm really glad that you shared that. And, sometimes it takes time. And just releasing the fact that, well, maybe it needs to happen within a year or 6 months. I mean, it takes the time that it takes.
It does. And I think the thing that I, for lack of a better word, worry about is how I experienced my mother and what I would consider the damage, the fallout from our relationship, and attempting to prevent that for my child, like that he won't have the damage that comes from this very, very intimate cellular, relationship that we have with our parents, both of them. And so it does take the time that it takes. You cannot make it happen faster than it will. But just the willingness and to be tender with ourselves, to be compassionate, and to come back over and over again, to try again, to get up, to fail and get up, to fail and get up, is the greatest gift that I have still, and that my mother offered me before she was deceased. She would come back time and time again with her heart open and her apologies. And I was not the nicest daughter. I was oftentimes cruel to her because I was so angry. But I forgive myself, and I forgive my mother, and I hope that I can heal a little more quickly so that my child can go along a little faster than I did.
Absolutely. Don't we want for our kids to not experience the things that we did, or at least get through those challenges quicker?
Yes. And congratulations on your child who is coming soon. And do you already have a child?
No. This is our first child, our very first, and we're having a baby girl, and her name is Maya. And so we're so beyond thrilled. And so that
is amazing.
Yeah, it is. And I'll just take a quick tangent. I had not spent much time around someone going through pregnancy, and what an incredibly beautiful transformation pregnancy is for both parties. I've transformed, but watching my wife transform from the second we discovered we were pregnant, and we were intentional about getting pregnant. So we found out shortly after she was pregnant, and her body immediately went into mom mode. And the changes, the physical changes that happened, the chemical changes, it blew my mind. And it still blows my mind today, just to see how incredible women are, and how
perfect women's bodies are for being moms. It's
Yes.
I have no words.
It is the most mind-blowing thing ever. You're absolutely right. And it's so this thing about motherhood, I create a project every year. I start a project from September to September because that is what I think is the new year for me. And my project this year was with motherhood. So the universe is so perfect and kind and sweet and divine that I always end up having conversations and experiences where I see motherhood on display. So even now, this podcast has become something about motherhood.
Yeah.
And you are watching, this experience. You're watching yourself become a father. You're watching your wife's body change and grow and this baby develop inside of her. And the body is so perfectly formed, like the organs actually move out of the way for the baby to grow. And the thing that I love about conception is that egg that is seated waiting to be fertilized, that egg sits there. And, thousands and thousands of sperm come to fertilize that egg. But that egg has a hard protein on the outside of it where nothing can get in it. So even though all those sperm are there, they cannot get in until that egg finds the sperm that it is going to invite in. It softens in that one particular space and then reaches tentacles out and pulls that one or two, sometimes they're twins, that sperm in. So the egg chooses.
Yeah.
It chooses, which is the feminine principle in and of itself. That, the creative principle, the principle of choice, the principle of expansion is feminine in nature. And so I'm in awe. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, it has. And we're doing a home birth. And my wife wants to be, completely natural, and just the surrender that we have to the process, to the birthing process, has been phenomenal. Because I think initially we did have fears, when we were kind of looking at our options of home birth, birthing center, hospital birth. There were fears around going the home birth route. And going, this links right back to our earlier conversation about those perceptions that we have. I was looking at birth through a lens of fear and a lens of what if XYZ happens, with the expectation of trauma. And once I was able to take that lens off, take those glasses off and put on a different pair, my attitude, my excitement, and my surrender towards home birth and natural birth, it was there. And that for me was pretty powerful, experiencing that for myself, going from a place of fear to a place of love when it comes to this most amazing, beautiful experience of, bringing a child into the world.
That is so, so powerful that you are going to have an incredible, so you're going to have a doula or a midwife or...
Yes,
just the two of you. Okay.
We're going to have a midwife, and we have a community here in Atlanta that we are a part of. We've helped to create, where a number of the couples there have had home births, and so we'll have some members of the community here with us, supporting, bringing their loving energy into our home to welcome baby Maya. And so it's going to be an incredible experience, and I'm very excited just to experience that itself, just the home birth itself, and then of course all the magic that comes with having a wonderful child here. So
yes, well, pregnancy is an incredibly magical time, as you probably already know. Yeah. But when I was pregnant, I actually experienced magic. Like I could think about things, like I could stand under a cabinet and think, oh gosh, I need that cabinet to open. Like I didn't even know that I had that kind of magic at first.
Wow.
And then like cabinets would pop open, like things would just like happen. Like I know it sounds so crazy, but I was there. So it actually did happen. It's like I have the most mystical experience because the energy is so high.
Yeah,
the energy is so high. So you really can, if you have any tendency toward magic already, if you're pregnant, like it's even more, it's amplified.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. There are things happening with with my wife Sarah and the energy that I don't understand, and I simply surrender to, and I say, okay, there is something divine happening, and I am blessed to be witness to it, and I'm not going to try to pin it down or label it. I'm just going to experience it.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Now, what's your son's name?
You. My son's name is Zion James.
Oh, that's beautiful. And having experienced what you have with growing up and the perceptions that you healed over time, the relationship with your mother that you started to investigate and become curious about later in life, what message, what beliefs do you want to impart onto Zion so that his experience is different?
Gosh, that's such a good question, because my son has Down syndrome, so it's a very unique experience, and maybe it's not. But I will say, the other day, his grandmother was here. My ex-husband's mother was in town, and we were talking about Prince, and she was saying, Prince has died, and she said, yes, Prince went to heaven, and my son is 9, and he's very, very he's in the know of everything. And she goes, Prince went to heaven. And he said, what's heaven? Like, he was so confused. And then his grandmother started to explain it. And then his father turned to her and said, oh, we haven't taught him anything about heaven. Like, we don't teach him any of that religious mumbo jumbo.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So like, we haven't taught him about heaven. It was like, we've taught him a little bit about God, like there's a creator of all things, but we haven't said you go to some place when you die. We just say people die.
Yeah.
and we don't talk about hell or evil or any of that sort of stuff. So we just are, we're like, we just let our son have his experience of stuff. And when he asks questions, we don't make up things that you can't explain. And we just, teach him that we love him and that we're here to support him, and that, we're going to help him do whatever he wants to do. Like, if we can figure it out, we're going to get it done. It's as simple as that. So yeah, and because he has Downs, I don't know for sure, but I think because he does, my belief is that he is present in a way that I wasn't as a child. Like, and he's also not in an environment like the one that I was growing up in. Yeah. So he's in an environment that's very safe, and he is in an environment that's very focused around his needs as well. And I mean, just like most children are today, like most children are the world is sort of focused on them. That's just not how we grew up. And so he just is the king of the world.
I love that.
Yes. And that's just sort of how it is.
That's beautiful. Well, what I liked about what you talked when you mentioned the things that you are teaching him and not teaching him, especially when it comes to religion and those beliefs. I mean, you said you just loving him. And isn't that really what's at the heart of all these different religions and spiritual beliefs? It's love anyway.
Yeah.
And so you're teaching him the essence of all of it. And I love that, to use that word very intentionally. I love that.
Yes, it is. It's so fun. I mean, so if there was anything really, like, yesterday my son performed at a school, like at the annual school performance. And when I got hold of him, the first thing that I always do is like bury my face in the place between his shoulder and his ear. Like, I just always want to smell him. I want to kiss him, and I just want to cuddle him. And that's basically all I want. I want him to not ask me for anything. Just let me cuddle you. And so if anything, I think he's learning that my mother is, like, overly affectionate, and I wish she would leave me alone.
Oh, that's too funny. Now, what has he taught you? I'm sure he's taught you so many things, but what stands out most that he has taught you over the last 9 years?
Wow. I think that he has taught me that children are really watching us. Really, they really are paying attention to us in a way that you just aren't aware of as an adult because you're too out of your freaking body. You're too in your head with what needs to get done. And so my son pays attention to everything, even when it seems like he's not. And it just freaks me out. Like, it really does. Like, he's listening to every word I say. He's paying attention to the style of my hair. He notices if I'm happy or if I'm sad. He's watching to see if I'm watching him. It is just the most intimate experience that two people can have with one another, like a parent and a child, that it scares me. Really, it does, because they are watching you. They are watching you, and they know what you're doing, and they know how you feel, and they know that, they know what you're feeling, even if you don't know what you're feeling. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's the freakiest thing ever. It is. You'll see.
Yes, I will. I'm excited for that. Wow. So I heard you say that your son, he's watching who you're being.
Yeah.
He's watching who you're being. And he's very present.
Yes.
Which is something that I have to remind myself to be intentional about, to get back to the present moment, to get back to what's happening right now, and not what I have created as things to focus on in the future and tomorrow and a month down the road. And those are two very powerful takeaways from
absolutely.
Which, like I said earlier, I'm sure I know there are so many things that Zion has taught you and that we all can learn from, but presence and watching and being. I love that.
Yeah, it's the truth. It is. And it's like I said, it's odd. Like, he can be in another room and I'll get up to go do something, and he will hear the steps of my feet that I don't even hear. And he will, from the other room, say, "Where are you going?"
Wow.
Yeah. It's that. Yeah. And so there's something about it that's really comforting.
Yeah.
And then there's something about it that's really invasive.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like, come on, dude, stop it. Like, let me walk around the house.
I love how it's just it's on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Because that's how life is. We talked about earlier when we hopped on this call. You were having one of those days, and the pendulum had swung to that side of the spectrum, and hopefully by the end of this call, or the end of tonight, or the end of the week, it'll swing to the other side of the spectrum for you. And so it's just, and then we roll with all of it.
Yes, we do. We roll with all of it, and hopefully we can, find ourselves in it, whatever end of the spectrum we're on, that we can at least find presence with ourselves. And that has been one of the biggest lessons that I am learning lately, like how to be with myself, in the midst of whatever is going on. Can I check in with myself and ask myself, are you okay? Do you need anything? Are you okay? Or how are you? Or whatever it is, it's like really being able to be with myself, like present, like out of my head, out of what the needs are of other people, and present to my own self.
I was reading again on your blog, and I don't remember the title of this article, but it was, I think, something to the tune of the most important question to ask with your family. But the topic of the article was, you were having your son was acting up in school, and your teachers were telling you and your son's father that he was doing X, Y, and Z, and you all sat down with him and had a conversation, and your son's father asked him, "How do you feel?" And that is a profound question. That is a profound question. And, you in the context of the article, which I'll link to that article as well, you pointed out the father asking his son how he felt, because with men in particular, tapping into your feeling and even acknowledging that we have feelings is something that a lot of men are not taught. You're taught to man up, and man up means drop your emotions, drop your feelings. But it was profound that, Zion's father asked him, how do you feel? And what you just shared is that you take time to ask yourself, how do you feel? And what do I need? And that is so, so important, because we don't always have a person in our lives to ask us how we feel. And so if other people aren't asking and we're not asking, then our feelings are never being addressed. And so,
and then our needs are also never being addressed.
Yes.
Because you know what you need, because for me, I feel into it. I feel like, oh, I need to eat. I need to get some rest. I need to be held. I need to be alone. I need to be connected. I mean, all of that. All that comes from that.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, Monique, I have appreciated every moment of this call. This has been more than I expected. I try not to come into these calls with expectations, but you and I had the pleasure of talking briefly before, so I kind of had an idea as to where this would go, but it went in a totally different direction, and I absolutely have loved every moment of it. And I have one final question for you, and this is a question that I ask everyone on the podcast.
Okay.
I'm
ready.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So what does having it all mean for you in your life?
Wow, that's a tough question in a way, because I think I've listened over the years to all the talk shows where they say, as a woman, you don't get to have it all. I've heard that so much. So if I was going to really check in with myself, and the honest answer is, what would having it all mean for me? I believe having it all would mean that I actually know what is important to me, and that I have the courage to go for that, or to be that. Does that make sense?
It does. So
yeah.
If I'm understanding, you have been curious enough to investigate and to deep dive into yourself to find out what it is that truly lights you up, what's truly important, what you truly value. And then once you have that information, like you said, you have the courage to go for it.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Or to be it. Be it. Yeah. So that's what having it all would be for me.
And do you have it all?
Do I have it all? Yes, I do. I have it all. I do. Thank you for asking me that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, Monique, I want to say thank you for having this conversation with me, and for being so open and just so loving with your stories and your wisdom and your insights, and for making it through the early parts of this where we tried to connect and it didn't happen, and we got back on the phone, and bearing with me and all that. And I want to give you a chance to share, if people want to learn more about you, read some of your blog posts, perhaps listen to your radio show, where can they go to find out information about you?
Great. Thank you so much. So I'm currently building a website at Monique Ruffin. It's just Monique, my first and last name, MoniqueRuffin.com. I have a podcast at 12radio.com, and you would just go on demand there, Monique Ruffin, and you could find all of my interviews and shows that I've done with really incredible guests. I have written at the Huffington Post, and I write at mom.me. And sometimes, occasionally, I write at purpleclover.com. So they can find me in a number of places.
Wonderful. And I will have links to all of that in the show notes on this episode. So if you're listening in your car right now and you're on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever other podcast app you might use, if you visit firesidenetwork.com, search for the show Having It All and find this episode with Monique Ruffin. In that episode, you'll see all the show notes, all the links, all that great stuff, so you can connect with Monique and continue just getting these amazing wisdom that Monique has to share. So, Monique, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really, really enjoyed our time together.
You're welcome, Matthew. Thank you. And I look forward to all the great work that you're doing, and I'll be paying attention.